Welcome to On the Chain.
I think this is key to bring up right about now, and while you're kind of digging through the politics of politics, I'm going to bring up Warren Davidson and some of the commentary thereof. But I like, so this is now Warren Davidson is really putting himself in the limelight, and so I think we need to continue with the limelight here. So Warren Davidson tweeted, "I've been working for years to provide legal clarity, including to the SEC, for all digital assets, and will continue working. In Congress, the majority party make sure that everybody that has been speaking out loudly about this, the majority party sets the agenda for every hearing and chooses 100% of the bills for votes. Vigorous oversight is now coming soon." So, Chip, there's a ton of things that he packed into, one tweet here, and we're going to look at the next tweet that he follows this up with. But it is true that for years now, he's been trying to get the Token Taxonomy Act in front of a vote, at least getting it out of the Financial Services Committee. But what we've seen is that in Congress, the majority party that control at the congressional level are controlling the agenda. They're controlling, as he's saying here, the hearings, and they get to choose which bills are being brought up for a vote. But worse is also those that are then responsible for and controlling some of the key committees, and the main committee here being the Financial Services Committee. So we know that we've got very little traction. And then Chip, he follows this up with any suggestions to improve the Token Taxonomy Act.
Right.
It sets a bright line test, not Howie, to
Yes.
objectively identify whether a digital token, is a security. Also clarifies custody and de minimis tax exemption. So you hear kind of what he's saying here, right, Chip? And
Yeah.
he's talking about his fight for legal clarity, and he's asking out for suggestions to improve the Token Taxonomy Act. Now, if you were to read through this and you were to respond to Warren Davidson, what kind of suggestions would you want to give him? What kind of commentary would you provide if he's asking now for, is there any way to improve the Token Taxonomy Act?
I would think there's always a way to, everything can be improved, yeah. But I think for this, the one thing that I would like to see changed in the token taxonomy is the taxation. It calls for a $600 up to $600, or what was it? So there's a $600 break in there somewhere. I would like to see that extended. But again, you're dealing with Congress, and how do you fund the wild parties, Jeff? Need to have money. So I mean, there's probably some things. I mean, if they couldn't pass it as is, which just changes the language in the 1933 securities updates, it just overrides any of the previous construed language from 70 years ago. So in that we can't get this one passed. How do you improve it? What we would do to improve it would be more like what Hester Peirce had suggested, which is having the opportunity to have a 3-year cycle where companies that are innovating and are building have up to 3 years to be totally decentralized, a check-in every year with a regulatory body. I'm not saying it's the CFTC, but they would go ahead and check in. And I would think that would be probably one of the better things. And that's her safe harbor, giving up to 3 years. And I think they moved it back to 2 years. Bottom line is, it kind of shows you that you get a little bit of time, you're checking in on a regular basis, but you're not stopping innovation, you're not waiting around. So maybe something along those lines. And even when we look at what Tom Emmer, 2 of the bills he put out there, I think have great language too. But at this point, we can't even have this. We can't even get it out of committee.
It's so crazy. So then, I look at some of the commentary that people put up here, and so you have Digital Perspectives here, and he decides,
Brad Kimes,
that there's going to be some specific commentary to this. Some of it good, some of it, in my opinion, a little bit off the rails. But here, so he's tweeting to Eleanor Terrett, Gasparino, John Deaton, Violent Law, Warren Davidson, Rep. Emmer. If there is any good left in Congress, someone will call for an investigation of ETHgate. Now, as we get into it, he goes on, let's make the Token Taxonomy Act better by holding ETH founders responsible for evading securities law. This is where he goes a little bit off the rails. because the Token Taxonomy Act isn't about a legal investigation or, any type of congressional investigation or research. The Token Taxonomy Act is about regulatory clarity for crypto at large. So why would
Correct.
you then take the Token Taxonomy Act to hold Ethereum founders responsible for? There's no proof that they've evaded securities law. It needs to go in front of a judge. It needs to go in front of the court, and it needs to have a legal discussion and debate over whether or not it's evaded securities law. That's number one. Now, it might have, it might not have. But to wrap that type of language into the Token Taxonomy Act would be extremely irresponsible and naive. So I'm a little bit surprised to see Digital Perspectives even making that kind of commentary to take a legal bill, and he knows better, to then say you want to hold the founders responsible. Now, what else can you stack into a bill? You want to hold the Ripple founders responsible for potentially breach of securities law? Do you want to hold Bitcoin miners responsible for environmental concerns? Do you want to hold the entire crypto space at large? What else do you want to stack into the Token Taxonomy Act when it's meant to provide regulatory clarity? And that's it. So a little bit off the rails, but then say, okay, plus holding SEC officials responsible for private gain from their public office. So are you saying that now you want the Token Taxonomy Act also to cover holding SEC officials responsible for private gain, which again is a legal issue, which is not something that you put into a bill. It's again illegal. It's going to require investigation, and it probably is going to require years of deep investigation. Now, then you bring up level the playing field. That's all we want. So this makes no sense. This entire tweet makes absolutely zero sense until the end. Now, the very end of it makes 100% sense to me. This is where he kind of reclaims himself at this point. Let free markets determine the winners, not regulators. And that's exactly right. Free markets need to determine winners and losers. The regulators and the government shouldn't be in the business of determining winners from losers. But if you're looking at this, so you gave your perspective on the commentary of what Warren Davidson, which was spot on, right? But now I'm looking at what Brad is saying here, and I don't understand the tweet. I mean, it just doesn't make sense as to why he would say that. I don't get it.
Well, Jeff, I mean, wait a minute, Jeff. Are you saying that the government's not supposed to pick the winners? Is that what you're saying? I was just asking.
No, what?
But by the way, you guys, if you just saw
that's the part that I like.
that 3 to 4 minute rant you just saw, that's why you want to tune in on Saturday mornings, because that's Jeff for 1 hour plus. He just gets so fired up. Look, I mean, and God, again, we love Brad Kimes, but I think what happens, you get so vested, you get so focused, hyper focused on this whole idea of whether it's some improprieties. Yeah, it looks like it. And why didn't the SEC, if it was the most obvious to go after Ethereum, especially since the two things they did a pseudo ICO. And the second part of that is that if you think about what they, as far as the reason they gave Charlie Gasparino, the SEC said, well, the reason we're going after Ripple is because their network's not finished. Well, here we are, 6 years plus, we still don't have ETH 2.0. So I think sometimes you get so into an issue that it eats you up. You want retribution of some kind, but again, you got to be respectful. You have somebody, a congressman who's putting out for legitimate comments, saying, "Hey, how do we make it better?" Well, you know what? We might want. I mean, we're not going to figure it out in the podcast here, Jeff. But what you might want to do is kind of workshop it a little bit, go back, put it out, discuss it. Because I said, hey, what do you think if we add this bit here? Or what if we alter this? Or what if we put, that's how you do it. But I can kind of see sometimes when emotions run high, this is the kind of thing that we get.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.